I was 30 weeks pregnant at this point with our son.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I either have this baby by myself. I was surprised they actually let me move because I was so far along.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to Georgia, Fort Benning at the time. Now it's Fort Moore, I believe.
More, yeah.
They had me go out there because they're like, yep, we're married, so we can go together. I can early, PTS.
Yeah.
So I move out there. My one thing, I was like, gosh, Georgia. I'm like, okay. They're like, you can be like basic training, something. I'm like, I want nothing to do with TraDoc.
Then we can just start?
Yep, after the clap.
After the clap, you just start immediately? Wait, do we got to do that again now? Or is this like,
No, it's fine.
this can be edited in a way?
Yeah.
All right, sick.
I hope it makes it.
Yeah, I hope it makes it too. Whatever the case may be, this is the first episode of the Warrior Rising podcast. I will say this, although this is the first time that we're taping the Warrior Rising podcast, this might not actually be chronologically the first one. I'm your host, Benjamin Bunn. Warrior Rising is the premier veteran nonprofit that specializes in helping transitioning veterans start their own businesses through coaching, self-paced education, and in some cases, attendance at business showers and opportunities for grants. I am here with our guest, Alyssa Michelle. She recently took on the role as Director of Social Media and Marketing. She's a prior field artillery officer in the military, transitioned from the Army in 2019, and of course is starting to dabble her toes in entrepreneurship. So really excited to talk to you about that today. If you're interested in sponsoring the Warrior Rising podcast, we currently have no sponsors. So you can, of course, reach out to Ben at warriorrising.org. We'd be more than happy to talk about all the great products or services that might be out there if you're interested in sponsoring this podcast. And of course, we're always looking for veteran-owned businesses to help sponsor the podcast, as it is 100% on brand. But without further ado, I'd love to jump into it. So, Alyssa, tell us a little bit about yourself. I think a great place to start. I'd love to hear about your military journey, right? So the majority of individuals that come to our organization that participate in Warrior Rising are, typically speaking, transition veterans, sometimes people still on active duty. And then, of course, a lot of military spouses. And then, of course, in some cases, some limited cases, we also help benefit family members for veterans. But I'd love to hear about your veteran experience, a little bit about your background, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. So first off, happy to be here. And so my first exposure to military was my dad being enlisted when I was in 1st to 4th grade. So very young.
Okay.
Definitely way before I ever thought I would be a part of it. So 11th grade rolls around in high school, and I decided that, I was super patriotic. I played Medal of Honor all the time. So obviously the stars were going to align. I was like, I kind of want to be in the military.
Medal of Honor, the video game.
Yes, like PS2 when it came out.
Okay, very cool. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right, we know how old you are now. All right, so that's good.
Yeah, 92.
Yeah.
Anyways, so my dad, the one thing he said was, you're not going to go enlisted. He was enlisted.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, whatever that means. That's fine. Cool. So you're going to go officer. I looked at the, military academies, all these different, it didn't seem like a really good fit. Then I found out about ROTC. Again, had no idea that this even existed. So I was like, cool. So I get to have a college experience, also commission. I get to be an officer. Sounds awesome. I get to have the best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds.
You get to live a little bit and commission into the military. Sounds great. So I went to SUNY Brockport, upstate New York, where I did ROTC.
What was the name of the school one more time?
SUNY Brockport.
SUNY Brockport. This is in upstate New York.
Upstate New York. Yeah, it's a state school, super small. Yeah, no one usually is familiar with it unless you've been in the area.
Yeah. Is there a popular sports team that hails from this college, this university?
No, it was very much like D3. So
okay, how many people? How many people were How many people were in your ROTC program? How large was your program?
In the 20s, low 20s. It wasn't a ton of people.
And that's just
that's the I'm talking about. That was the commissioning source. Everyone there's probably roughly 60, something like that, with all MS1, 2, 3. It was a decent size.
That's a decently sized program.
Yeah, it was pretty good. A lot of people, it's a swinging door.
Yeah.
It's not for me, whatever. So This is where I discovered my athleticism too. So like that's kind of my military journey. Is like, okay, cool. I'm actually really good at this. I became passionate about it, so I became good. I was not an athlete before.
You did not have an athletic background prior to that.
0%.
And the listeners will find out that that's ironic because now
I
you're
coach people.
Yeah, you're knee deep in health and wellness. You're in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 0% of me did sports. I did track and field and cross country once I figured out, oh, I'm joining the Army, but I was not a star athlete by any means. Anything with a soccer, nothing, like volleyball got cut from all these sports.
So you would try out for the sports, but you got
Softball, yeah, volleyball, cut. I was a cheerleader for a hot minute in my freshman year in high school, and I was like, this is not for me. It ran in my family. I have a ton of athletes in my family. Now you can argue I'm probably the most athletic out of my family, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
how the turntables. It's like, look at me now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not with sports, but as far as like functionality and being an athlete, I thought athletes always meant you had to have like, some kind of sports team or something like that. So,
it's interesting. Like, cause I guess like I'm probably like the fittest person in my family, although I have no specified athletic background of like any variety. Yeah. But I think like a lot of times people will just assume I'm the most like health and wellness oriented. And it'll be because like really innocuous things. They're like, man, what should I do if I want to lose weight? And I was like, I don't know. I eat a lot of green beans. And they're like, oh, I should be eating green beans.
They take it as biblical.
Yeah. And then like, they'll like circle back with me. They're like, hey, I've been eating green beans every day for 3 months and I've lost 10 pounds. This is a miracle. I've been telling everybody to eat green beans. And I was like, yo, bro, actually it was like, what I meant for you to say was just eat more whole foods, and obviously leafy green vegetables are the way to go. Yeah. But just like, hey, but if the green bean thing is working for you, listen, yeah, I'm ready to write the book, The Green Bean Diet. So now currently like probably the fittest person in your family, but you didn't have vast athletic background. Yeah.
So I think there was some doubt into like the whole military. Like, are you sure? I got a lot of that. Like, sure. I don't know. Is she going to fall out? But no, I found a leader in myself there. I had people who believed in me, saw potential in me. So one of my, very good mentors through college. He was the SMI for my class, so the senior military instructor. He was a Green Beret, like total badass, did everything. He supported me the entire time. He was there for me, got me into, saw potential in me that I had never seen in my entire life. Sure. So that's how I knew I was like, military is for me. Like, this is going to be awesome. Yeah. Went to airborne my freshman year, like airborne school. So I got my wings when I was like 19, so it was like a super exciting time for me.
When you got back to ROTC after you had gotten your jump wings, is that kind of like being so like when I was in the program, I was prior enlisted. Yeah. So I showed up with like a CIB and a long tab. Like, what the hell's that? Yeah. And everybody was like, oh my God, this guy like walks on water and swims on the land, which wasn't necessarily the case in reality. Yeah. I was a bit of a shitbird on occasion, but had done a lot of cool stuff in the military. But I always would see when the kids would go to like those schools and come back, they always felt like 10 foot tall. Were you like the golden child after that?
A little bit.
Yeah. Cause you have to be physically fit to even go.
Yeah. And the fact that I wasn't, like, I remember getting my first 300 literally the last semester of my freshman year. I had never before. Like, I never thought I'd be able to supersede. So at the time, obviously it's a little different now. Yeah. Getting a perfect score. And then after that, I never got anything less than a 300.
You want to hear something? I've never gotten a 300 on my PT.
It's a little different, though. You can argue the gender.
Hey, argue all you want. Like, listen, I've just never gotten a perfect score on my PT test. I've always been like seconds away from the run, or like one time I maxed the run and then like came up short by 2. I've just never. I've never gotten the best score. I've never been the guy that like maxes out everything. I'm just like always in the top 10. I'm like always a top 10 guy. I'm never first. You know what I mean? Always.
If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. God dang.
Yeah, I remember breaking that 13 into the 13s for my 2 mile. I was so proud of myself. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, but it was a good time. I became like this different person. I was never a leader of anything. And then all of a sudden I was the color guard captain. I was the Ranger Challenge team captain, which is like the weird sports team that we have. Oh yeah, I did. So my last 2 years, I was the captain of that team, ended up commissioning #1. Nice. So I got to choose where I wanted to go, and everyone's like, why didn't you go to Italy and this and that? Great question. I probably should have.
Why didn't you go to Italy?
I would have had my first choice. I have no idea
why. Where did you choose to go?
82nd.
You chose to go to the 82nd Airborne Division.
82nd Airborne. I don't know. I had some friends, but also I was like, it's historic, and I'm like, this is so bad. I was very much drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that was so.
I don't regret it by any means, but I think I could have probably chosen something a little bit more exotic while I was young and single.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Uh,
No, I mean,
but that,
look,
yeah.
the 82nd Airborne Division, has a storied history. What used to be known as Fort Bragg is now known as Fort Liberty.
Mhm.
I've spent a significant portion of my young adult life and my military career there, but yeah, I would, if you could go back, if you could go back in time and tap little Alyssa on the shoulder and be like,
Are you sure?
yo, where
Yeah.
would you go instead?
I would probably go somewhere like Italy or because they have, airborne unit there. Why did I not think about that? I
I was
don't.
stationed there. It was the jam.
Yeah, and I really wish I had friends afterwards that he was prior enlisted and then went,
Okay.
he came from Italy and then went officer. So yeah, I don't know. That's what I would have done, but things are supposed to happen for a reason. I would not have my son because I wouldn't have been located where
Yeah.
my husband at the time was.
Yep.
So
Yep.
again, he just graduated Ranger School. We actually met in Spain. So what was it? My junior year of college, I got my foreign wings. We cadets, like 8 cadets from over the country, went to Spain, got our jump wings, like trained with the Spanish soldiers. It was
Oh,
an
dang.
awesome. It was the coolest trip. I don't even think they do that one anymore. But I got my Spanish foreign wings my junior year, and that's how I met my then, husband.
Yeah.
And so we rekindled. We never really dated. We just, had, Spanish little fling or whatever you want to call it. Like he was
Sure.
my translator. He's Puerto Rican. So I was like, cool. Now I got to, whatever,
Nice.
made sense.
Does Puerto Rican Spanish and Castilian Spanish,
It's very different, but he could at least understand.
so I was given Spanish as a language when I was in the Special Forces
Yeah.
qualification course, and my stepfather of like 30 years is Puerto Rican, has a bunch of Spanish speaking relatives, and after I got done with that, I like immediately expected to be able to like once I took Spanish at the JFK
Yeah.
warfare for language and all this kind of stuff, I was like, nice, I'm going to be able to go back and talk to all my relatives. And then I was like listening to him speak Spanish, and I was like, I don't understand what you're saying.
There's like Catalan. There's like all
Yeah.
different forms. There's like a French version.
Castilian, Spanish, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. So, well, so super cool. So like, met what your soon to be, or what would in the future be your husband in Spain,
Yep.
picked the 82nd Airborne
He happened to be
Division.
there. Was
Yeah.
graduating Ranger School. I was like, cool, let's meet up, have some dinner. He looked super skinny and scrawny.
Yep.
I was like, oh boy. So he was like really self-conscious, but long story short,
Yep.
started actually dating, got married, had my son. So I'm like, yeah, had I done anything differently that I wouldn't have my son, who is like my pride and joy. So
Hey, I feel
everything
it.
happens for a reason, but
Yeah.
it would have been cool to be somewhere else too and not just running our dens every day.
Every day.
Every day. Every new commander too. They wanted to take you on a death march
Yeah.
as fast as they could.
Up and down our dens. Yeah, man, I've ran up and down that road one too many times. So your career takes you to our dens. You're a field artillery officer.
Yes.
That is a combat arms MOS. So, as I am thinking about the time frame, it sounds like you were probably one of the first waves of females that were able to kind of participate in that branch, correct?
Yes, and I
Cool.
actually volunteered for that. And
Okay.
people thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
It was a branch detail at the time. I don't know how they do it now, but that was like I would do artillery and then go MI once they
Sure.
had a lack of captains. So I did artillery, and the first position that I had was a company fire support officer, which was hands down probably my favorite experience in the military was being
Yeah.
a fire support officer, getting to work with the infantry, getting to see the mortars, getting to see all of like the operations process come together, the entire mission happen.
Yeah.
I was the first female that battalion had ever seen.
Okay.
So I had to earn my respect. I had to go
Yeah.
to JRTC, do all the trainings, and just be like, I'm very much a silent, like, I will just show you what I can do. I'm not going to just talk, whatever. I'm like, they need to
Yeah.
see it. We got the old crusty first sergeant who's like, oh, this isn't going to be good. You have to be able to keep up with me. I'm like, Roger that.
Yeah.
I got this.
Well, tell me how'd that go? I mean, did you find that you had problems keeping up, or were you able to like quickly gain the respect of everybody?
I gained the respect of them, and most my training, my guys were really good.
Yeah.
We always had comms too. I don't know, as a lot of infantry usually go to their fire support team for some. At least the ones I was at, they always depended on us. At least ours were up. You know, if they had an issue, we always had comms with somebody.
Listen, once upon a time, I was like, that's how I started my military career, was like a radio telephone operator.
Yeah.
And by the time and then later on, I was a Special Forces communication sergeant. By the time I was like a platoon leader, in the 178th, if I had a problem with the radio, 100%, I was like, yo, somebody get the FSO right now to fix this radio. Or my FSNCO. I was like, somebody get my FSNCO.
Yeah.
And I was like, and as a matter of fact, when I was in Afghanistan, I was like, you're my RTO. You're just my RTO.
Yeah.
because I don't know, because dude,
I would
it's
be
like,
right next to the commander because he's like, I need to have
yeah.
eyes and ears and yeah.
And anybody that's ever worked with any military radio knows that it just like essentially operates on like dark magic, on sorcery. You know what I
It's just
mean?
this big block of, and I always had to have two. So, I mean, so going back to your original question too, it's like earning my respect that way. I mean, the only place like slept in the hooches, did the whole thing
Yeah.
when, especially when it came to like a JRTC training rotation, which was like 19 days in the box and we're all miserable. We went black on water at one point. It's pouring rain. I mean, because they want to test it like it really would be. Supply wasn't working. I guess we're not getting, whatever we needed.
Yeah.
So it was a good testing period. I kept up. There's a day that was like 13-mile ruck march to wherever, fire missions, things like that. The only place that I drew the line with my first sergeant, I was like, if we were in country, it'd be different, but I'm not using the slit trench.
Yeah.
That was the one thing, because I'm like, I've had to walk by it so many times, and I see dudes with their pants, and I'm just like, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
So like,
That's the one thing.
it,
One boundary.
and like when I was in the infantry officer basic course, and honestly, like in a bunch of other courses, and like there's the slit trench.
Mm-hmm.
And for those just now tuning in, a slit trench is essentially like an outdoor, way to use a bathroom. And it's essentially a trench that, typically speaking, is on a downward slope and kind of leads its way to a hole. But unfortunately, like, it has to be inside the patrol base, right? Because like I'm certain a great way to get smoked out in the bush if you're like in actual combat operations is because I think everybody like wants to find a nice peaceful spot, woodland area, free from vermin or apex predators, and just like stake out a peaceful like place in the middle of a savanna, just have a nice peaceful time when you're using the bathroom. But just like, that's just not how it breaks down. And you're just inside a patrol base and you're just like surrounded by everybody. And listen, like, I'm not some kind of voyeur or something like that. But if I see somebody meandering over in broad daylight to use a slit trench, I'm just like, oh man, here goes Jones.
Especially if you're the one that's on, patrolling that end.
Yeah. Or worst comes to worst, we'd be having like an actual like patrol brief or something in the middle of this. And they're just like a guy in the middle of the brief he's like, I'm sorry, this is the time that I have to go. And everybody's just like, well, he's doing what he's supposed to. Yeah. This is what it's there for. This is the utility that thing provides. But interesting. So I think that was a good, the first sergeant met you halfway. I imagine he was like, no problem.
Well, at first it was very much like, you're using all of us have to. And I was like, First Sergeant, I understand if we were in country, we're not. We're in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And there's nobody coming after me.
Yeah, like, brother, we're live action role playing.
I was like, I completely get it, but I'm like, it's also my first like massive field exercise for many days, and there's a bunch of guys. Yeah, it's a safety thing.
Yeah,
Again, if we're in country, I'd be totally fine with attempting that.
Okay. So you do well at Fort Bragg. You get the respect of peers, subordinates, commanders, all this kind of great stuff. Yep. Where'd your career take you next?
So when I got married, my ex-husband now, he was an infantry officer.
Yep.
So it was time for him to go to Triple C. He was a couple years older than me.
Yeah.
I was 30 weeks pregnant at this point with our son. Yeah. So I'm like, well, either have this baby by myself. I was surprised they actually let me move because I was so far along.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to Georgia, Fort Benning at the time. Now it's Fort Moore, I believe.
Fort Moore, yeah.
They had me go out there because they're like, yep, we're married, so we can go together. I can early, PTS.
Yeah.
So I move out there. My one thing, I was like, gosh, Georgia. I'm like, okay. They're like, you can be like basic training, something. I'm like, I want nothing to do with TRADOC.
Okay. Where'd you end up?
So it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But other than the Ranger Regiment, there was a FORSCOM unit, the Task Force 128, which I think is gone now. And that's where I ended my military career. It was the only FORSCOM unit there was one battery, it was engineers, supply, batteries, and a bunch of infantry guys. So it was an infantry task force with the supporting elements.
Okay.
So it was kind of cool. That's where I got to do my PL time. And then I went straight into being the XO. I was hand selected by my commander, who was a Ranger guy.
Nice.
I had first worked when I was still pregnant for the last 10 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. He was with me in the fire cell, so the battalion side, like we're doing higher level fires.
Yeah.
Which is I don't even want to say it's like that. It's Benning. You know, it wasn't like there
Yeah.
was a lot of stuff going on. I had worked with him and I was pregnant at the time and I was surprised that I actually, you know, got his attention, but he was 82nd. Our first sergeant was 82nd. I was
Yeah.
82nd. So for some reason we had our own little like brethren and understanding of how things go.
Yeah.
So he was like, I want you to be my XO. I'm like, well, I need to do some PL time first, sir. You know, so he let me literally do like the smallest amount of PL time. He's like, I need you as XO.
Yeah.
And I kicked ass. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that was my favorite probably position.
What's being
Besides,
an
like,
XO?
I loved being the FSO or the FSO, but XO was still one of my favorites. I liked doing the higher level stuff. I liked getting the guys taken care of.
Yeah.
There was something about it just being like responsible. I mean, my commander like trusted me, so I mean, he was like, "Get this done," and I just got it done.
You know,
So.
it's funny. My sister, Courtney Bunn, who actually works at another great veteran nonprofit called Team RWB, which specializes in veteran transition, specifically focuses on health and wellness. Right. She was a field artillery officer, and her favorite job, she said, was being an XO. She told me. I remember she was like,
Yeah.
"I would have been an XO. I could have been an XO for like 10 years."
I could, yeah, I agree.
Really? Because
I just think the unit, it could have, that unit was, I think, I don't know if he was relieved, like the task force commander. I don't know what the heck happened.
Yeah.
But it was like very toxic, which also led to why I got out.
Yep.
Especially being an officer and being lumped with all officers, like, oh, all of them don't take. I was very much an advocate for my soldiers, very much an advocate for my battery.
Yeah.
Which is why I was in the position I was. Because when my commander and my first sergeant, me and my first sergeant were exactly how you're supposed to be, on the same exact page every time, supported each other.
Nice.
My commander trusted me to take care of things at the meetings, to advocate again. For some reason, the battery was like the redheaded stepchild, you know,
Yeah.
like you need us, but at the same time, like we were, you know, oh, your howitzer's always down. Like, yeah, if they weren't from freaking Vietnam, maybe they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know?
And I had briefly spent time in a couple units that were kind of like that, where, you know, it was like there were culture issues, or, you know, the battalion or the company or whatever was kind of like, kind of was like a red flag unit where everybody was like, man, everybody over there is a mess. So, and
Yeah.
like I said, I spent brief amounts of time in units like that. And I know how that can be. So that can be painful. And so, you know, this is where you transitioned out of the military.
Yep. So when I was I was finishing up some XO time, and that was the point when we pinned captain, me and a bunch of other people, and I was not the only person to get out. There was like 6 of us who just pinned captain who said peace out.
And what year was this?
2019.
2019. So this is right before the shutdowns. This is right before COVID-19 happened.
Which none of us could have known was going to happen.
Nobody would have known.
But we had a choice. Obviously, anytime you do kind of military school or anything like that, you owe time. You
Yep.
owe time for anything the military gives to you. So we had to make a choice. I mean, I had to make a choice. Everyone made whatever. And I was like, I don't even know what the hell I'm going to do. I thought I was going to do this forever.
Yeah.
I thought the military was my thing. I really enjoyed it. But again, like I said, a lot of toxic leadership.
And now is that what put you over the edge? Is just like, hey, listen, like there's some leadership here. You know what I mean? Like, did you have like machinations or desire to go do something else in the private sector?
So there was just a lot that went into getting out. The biggest hurdle though was I had no idea what I was going to do afterwards. I didn't even consider being an ROTC instructor, which is something I thought about after I was out. Basically, the only options when getting out of the military, at least in my exposure when I was getting out at Benning, more whatever you want to call it, was like become a CDL driver, go back to school, or join corporate America.
Yeah.
So out of the 3, corporate America was something that sounded stable.
Yeah.
Because I came from a background of very like everything is like safe choices, you know.
So it's so interesting, right? Because I think for a lot of veterans, transitioning veterans, just the transition is really difficult, right? Like when you think about it, when you transition out of the military, you're losing like a handful of things, and it happens on a timeline that I think can be pretty jarring, right? And like first and foremost, like you're losing a job, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, whether you're getting severance, retirement, medically discharged, whatever, you know, whether you're walking away with a paycheck for the rest of your life, or you're walking away and have to go find another means to provide yourself. You're losing a job.
Yeah.
You're losing a job. That's traumatic in a way. You're losing your community. You know, you and I both know that when you're on active duty, it's like your friends, your family, your community, you know, you land into them. It's like you get there, you know, here's your unit. Here are the people that you're going to spend, you know, 8, 9, 14 hours a day with. And then like additionally, like I think there's something to be said for losing a bit of purpose. I think I used to love being able to tell people that I was an infantry officer. I didn't actually tell people I was a Green Beret. I was kind of like frowned upon. It's like, you're a quiet professional. But like but
Yeah.
after, once I had received a commission, I was like, yeah, I'm an infantry officer in the Army. And I love telling people that. And like, having lost a job, a profession, my community, and a sense of purpose was really difficult. You had all that, and then layered in on top of that, you're a single mom, both
Mhm.
geographically and practically speaking. You're transitioning out of a long-term relationship. You're far away from home at this point. So you really like took, the transition process from active duty back into the private sector is already bumpy, but it sounds like you really, that's a rough time. So tell me
Yeah.
about that transition process.
Yeah, so a lot of it, so obviously didn't go back home to New York,
Yep.
and that was an intentional move.
Yeah.
I knew that there was, and I talk about this a lot now in social media because it makes sense to me now where I'm at, but I knew that there was capabilities within me, or there was something more for me, and going back home would kill that.
Yeah.
And I don't say that in a bad way against family or anything, but there was growth that needed to happen.
Sure.
And I just knew that it wasn't going to happen there. So, anyways, I found this corporate job all over the US. I made a decision. I went through what was called Alliance, and it helps put officers into corporate jobs that are above entry level. So you're
Okay.
getting paid at least what you were making when you left.
Oh, very
It was
cool.
a very rigorous interview process. I was reading business books. I was trying to like get spun up on all kinds of things. So I'm like, I have zero experience in any of this. None of my family is corporate. Like, it's just not me.
Yeah.
So I need to get spun up on it. It was very daunting because the biggest thing that I found out, and as like I recently, like less than a week ago, quit my corporate job of 5 years now.
Yeah.
Um, and so a lot of what goes into that is the lack of purpose. If I don't have purpose, we're very task purpose type people. Once
Sure.
you have some military experience, I need to know why I'm doing something. There needs to be a bigger picture. Obviously, there needs to be people in different jobs like forever because we have things that need to get done. But for me, there was just such a lack of the purpose there, the camaraderie, like you were saying, that community. And so the transition was hard because I'm going into the unknown. I'm going to a state where I know nobody,
Yeah.
with a barely 2-year-old and having to enroll him in school and figure out how I'm going to raise him, make enough money. So I chose the corporate job that had the highest promise of the highest income, basically promise. It's a
Yeah.
profit sharing type business. So I chose that one because all I saw were dollar signs, and I needed to take care of my son and I, and paid me well. I like am taking a massive pay cut by leaving.
Yeah.
However, I'm not living my life. And I'm seeing it pass by. I don't see my son as much. It's just in the evening. So I'm like, all these different things have happened kind of as a big, as a big wake up call. That I wish there was more in the transitioning process that showed you other ways. Like, I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, so I had no idea that anyone could be one, or that, some people are more inclined, I would say, than others. Like, I don't necessarily have like a business idea when I was that young.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
so, so it sounds like, you spent 5 years in this like corporate
Hmm.
position. It sounds like it was a bit of a soft landing too. Like, you were working with an organization specifically that transitions veterans
Yep.
into positions that have parity in pay, which I think is fantastic. I think
Yeah.
that's a great resource. Like, how great it was that you had access to that, right? So many
Yeah.
people just are like unemployed, but it sounds like you've done this for about 5 years. You've been doing it as a single mom. Props to
Hmm.
you. I'm a product of a single mother. Both me and my sister are. So did this for about 5 years, but it sounds like you kind of want more. Sounds like maybe you didn't see the same type of purpose or fulfillment from
Yeah.
this kind of corporate job, and you're deciding to kind of strike out on your own, is what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear about that part. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so a lot of it was the lack of self belief, or like how I grew up, because a lot of that poison from like when you grow up, of like every argument that my parents ever had was about money,
Yeah.
or like everything, like always buy used and this and that. I'm very like, no, I bought like a car brand new, although it was just like a little Camry. It was still brand new at the time. It's paid off now,
Yeah.
but it's like
That paid off Toyota.
yeah,
Hey, that's the
yeah, it's paid off.
stuff.
That's the best kind of car, right?
That's
The
the
one
best kind
that's
of cars.
paid off.
I got a Subaru right now. I'm trying to pay that, a Subaru Outback, I might add.
Yeah,
Which a lot of people are shocked that I drive a Subaru Outback. But listen, hey, consumer rated, that's a great vehicle. You know what I'm saying? It's an Outback too, so it's manly or whatever. All right, so So striking off on your own, you
Yeah.
got a paid off Toyota. We're doing
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've come such a far way, and what I knew I was lacking before just jumping into entrepreneurship was self-belief. It was like, can I
Yeah.
really do this? That fear of failure, which sometimes is coupled with the fear of success. Like, what do you do now when you reach that? Because,
Yeah.
as most entrepreneurs or most people that are high achievers or high performers, you're never at the top of the mountain. There's always another mountain behind it. You're always trying to go for more and more.
Sure.
So is that fear of success a real thing? But I decided to strike out, like, I'm just going to go out there on my own. I'm going to do this. I saved enough because I'm not saying leave your job and have $0 in the bank. I need to take care of my son. I need to pay my mortgage. Like,
Yeah.
my mortgage is my only debt, and I'm very proud of that.
Nice.
So I'm very, very proud of that. Because I work really hard and I put everything away, and I'm not just going to be frivolous. So, I mean, I set myself up and my son to make sure that I can do this with, X amount of time of bills taken care of.
So I think that's like such a mature decision to have made, right? And I think a lot of times, people will become entrepreneurs, typically speaking, because they have something they're so passionate about.
Yeah.
They find this thing that they like really love, and at some point in time, they figure out it's like, hey, I can actually monetize this thing that I like doing, which is a slippery slope because it's like now all of a sudden the thing that you love sort of does become work, and I think we'll have an opportunity to talk about that. But it sounds like you took like a really deliberate approach to it, and I got a lot of respect for that. When I got out of the military, I knew that I kind of had a timeline established, and I started taking really deliberate steps. And I know a lot of people tend to dive in. They're like, I'm passionate. I love this thing. And they're just like, and I'm sick of my day job. You know what? I'm out of here. But it sounds like you took a really deliberate approach. You got things paid off. You like, it sounds like you were playing a little bit of chess, not so much checkers in terms of like planning for your future. So you've recently transitioned from this corporate job. When did this happen?
Literally less than a week ago.
God dang, man. It happened like 15 minutes ago, bro.
Yeah,
and now
basically.
for our next commercial break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yo, I'm quitting the job, all right?
And they were, obviously taken aback, but that's corporate is what it is. But, I'm doing so, to your point too, I'm like obviously aligned, working with Warrior Rising, but also I coach one-on-one. So health and wellness for men and female. And it's a slippery slope, like you said, where something I love so much, like I can't imagine my life without like the gym or, eating healthier, looking aesthetic. It's okay to be like, I work out because I want to look good.
Listen,
and live long.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Look, one of the backs of one of our most popular shirts at the gym, on the back of it, it just says "Look better naked," and it's like one of our slogans that we've had for a long time. And I think, potentially, like I could see how that could be like construed as a caustic statement. Like, do looks really matter? And like, listen, I'm not saying that looks have to matter by any means, and in a lot of cases they don't. But like, listen, if a guy or a gal comes through the doorway or walks into a room and they're like visibly fit, it's like I automatically know a few things about this person. I'm like, this person got this way through weeks, months, or possibly years of disciplined action. They woke up earlier, they stayed up late, they've attended the gym 3 to 4 times a week. They're eating right, they're not drinking as much. Like I just know a lot of things about, like, if somebody walks in and they just like look aesthetically impressive as a result of, muscles and all this, not plastic surgery or anything like that. I'm sure that's deliberate too, in a way, but I'm like, I know automatically, like this person is disciplined and they got that through hard work. And you can make a couple assumptions about somebody. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. And having passion for health and wellness is a great place to start a business, as and I certainly can relate,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the stories too that, it's so funny how this happens. But one of my clients now who's been working with me since October, she's actually my old biology teacher from high school.
Really?
So this was when I wasn't an athlete.
Yeah, she just been watching you online and was like,
so
I
like,
want what you have.
There's only a few people in my like high school, what's it called? Like teachers that I actually like still have on Facebook, but she reached out because she saw that I was doing some kind of challenge, a free challenge for 2 weeks, and she loved it so much. To this point, she's already lost 24 pounds.
Let's go.
And she's about to turn, 45, and she's super stoked. She's like, I feel hot. And I'm like, first of all, coming from a biology teacher, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But she's an awesome person. She's lost so much weight. She loves what she looks like. She's like, my husband's on board. Like, he's always been fit. And now
Nice.
we're able to work out together. I'm setting a good example. I'm eating better. And, it's just those are the wins that I love doing what I'm doing. Because my thing is, like, I don't want you to ever need another coach after me.
Yeah.
Like, once we're done, now you know what to do. Like, you're sustainable. It's not about like keeping you on this hook. It's about like just now you know what to do.
Teach a person how to fish kind of stuff
Yes.
going on. Well, tell me about that. I mean, well, let me back this up real fast. I want to hear about that because that's, in a sense, that doesn't sound like a very sustainable business model. I'd almost want to have them on the hook forever.
Yeah, and that's like there's two.
Yeah, I'm the only one. I got the magic. You just have to come see
Yeah, it's
me.
all secrets that I will share with you. There's no secret.
Good for you for not gatekeeping, and good for you for producing a mechanism that somebody can like participate in the economy and see their way out at some point. I think that's awesome and that's ethical. But I want to back up. So you transition. You just left this corporate gig a week ago. What the hell are you doing right now?
That's it. Well, like, are you talking about just like?
Yeah, tell me about these entrepreneurial pursuits. Also, you definitely work for Warrior Rising as the newly minted marketing director and social media director.
So that's actually a lot of my time now is like the Warrior Rising, trying to build some content and figure out, like, obviously we're in Iowa right now, and I get to, for the first time, boots on ground, get to actually capture some veterans and some cool stories.
Yeah.
So I'm super stoked about that. I love content. As soon as, the pandemic hit in 2020, that's when I developed my handle of Little Fit Patriot.
Okay.
That's when this entity was made.
Yeah.
And that's when I started getting really into social media, and I got a lot of hate for it. My family were like, what the heck are you doing? And all of a sudden it blew up my original page.
It's interesting. I tell people all the time that social media is a blank billboard and you got to use it if you have it. And if you want to market, it's like, it's the number one way to market that doesn't cost you a damn thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's like, if they're rolling it out, then use it. It'd be relevant.
Sure.
So now I have like this newer page, the same handle, going more of the fitness route. Cause I did modeling. I started over a year ago. I started like my podcast, and now that's taking a shift because I'm trying to figure out which direction I want to go with it.
Sure.
So, I've been trying a lot of different things. Like I was telling you earlier that I want to intern with, videographers and just get on the ground and figure out, okay, how do you capture, how to use light? How do you do like a fitness one versus just like a creative piece, like just different questions, and just I just want to, things that interest me, I'm just going to try it. And then that's kind of where I'm at right now is like.
So what's interesting to me is you spent a lot of time, what it sounds like, during the pandemic, which is such a great time to like get spun up and smart on things like social media, and like personal brand marketing. And I think a lot of people saw revitalization and health and wellness during the shutdowns, right? One, because everybody had an exorbitant amount of free time.
Yeah.
And doing fitness is a great way to do that. A lot of people working out from home. But also I think there was like this prevalent messaging that if like you were not physically fit, if you had like comorbidities during COVID-19, you were just like more susceptible to die, which was true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you were like, had heart disease and you were type 2 diabetic, my brother in Christ, you were in danger during COVID-19, right? So you took this as an opportunity to like deep dive into your own personal brand, how to use social media. And what's interesting is you have gotten so good between 2019 and now that, you were able to, produce a sophisticated resume for Warrior Rising, a veteran nonprofit who was looking for somebody to essentially take the director position for both social media and marketing. And I cannot speak for the rest of the staff, but just, from my 10,000 foot view as the deputy director of the or the executive deputy director of the organization, I think you've hit the ground running, right? So you've developed this acumen on your own that not only you have been able to monetize, you've been able to kind of turn this into your entrepreneurial pursuit, but now you have enough acumen that other people would just like your skill. They're just like, I would love for you to just come leverage what you can do for us. And I think that's like a pretty powerful thing. And that like, this is something that you were just developing for yourself to grow your own personal brand, but you've done such a good job at it. Now people want you to help with theirs too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it all aligned to into the corporate world. It sounded almost like too good to be true. I thought I was making it up. I'm like, no, literally 3 to 4 weeks ago, I was offered this thing. Cause I remember texting you specifically saying this couldn't have come at a better time.
Yeah.
I was already planning on leaving. But I was kind of like, it was more, well, I hope the coaching thing works out or I figure something else. But I wanted to live a little bit more life, see my son. I was like, I knew this is not what I wanted to do long term. If I had to go sweep floors at a gym or there's jobs everywhere. It's not like I couldn't find a job. My resume is long.
Yeah.
Or at least detailed, I would say. I haven't had too many crazy jobs. But and the interesting thing about the pandemic too, when I was building my brand, is I never worked from home. My business kept running. It was all hands, like it's a
Yeah.
manual job. Plumbers didn't stop working, so I couldn't stop selling.
Yeah, no joke.
So I never worked from home. I never had that experience. So it is very different. I did my first competition during COVID. 2020, I swear, was as awful as the things happened of COVID-19.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the more pivotal ones in my life.
Yeah, and I think probably a lot of people felt that there was a lot of opportunities for growth. I think for a lot of people,
Mhm.
a lot of individuals that all of a sudden had an opportunity to work from home probably had a lot of time to be pretty introspective,
Yep.
take a really close look at what your actual home life looks like.
Mhm.
Now there's a big push for a 4-day work week, which I sort of support. I work as like a consultant, as like a 1099 contractor for a lot of different CPG brands, different stuff like that. And one of the things that I like build one thing I like always, I'm like, I want to be a 1099. You're not going to W-2 me. I'm not
Yep.
your employee. I'm a contractor for you. I walk away when I want, which gives them a lot of flexibility too. But a lot of times I try and my contracts, I usually try and sneak in. I was like, I can't work Fridays.
Yeah.
And I usually have some kind of excuse. If you're somebody that might be retaining me in the future, this is an excuse. This is real life. I'm always like, I gotta spend time with my son, but or I like, it's just I got stuff going
Mhm.
on. That's when I handle family stuff. But in reality, I just like don't want to work on Fridays. I just want to like hang out with my
Yeah.
family and go to the gym and this kind of shit.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it gave people an opportunity to kind of like say like, hey man, like maybe I don't want to just like work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people
Yeah.
had that epiphany. It sounds like you were one of those people.
Yeah. And obviously, it took me a few more years, like 4 more years, to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I knew from the beginning, I was like, I can't do this job forever. But again, it was stability for I had to think of my son. And a lot of people are like, well, you still could have taken the risk. But I'm like, yeah, but to do what? Find myself. Again, it's that self belief piece that I
Yep.
was lacking. I had to believe in myself more. And now I'm at a place where I'm like, I know that I can do whatever.
So on that self-belief piece, right? I'm sure that as you were doing this, like you're like, yo, listen, I have a 9 to 5, super secure.
Mhm.
Sounds like they loved having you, needed you, probably. It sounds like you were a necessary individual inside the organization. So you had job security, you're making a good wage.
Mhm.
Like things are fine, right? According to the 1980s, 90s standard for the American dream. I got a 9 to 5, I'm paying my bills. I got a mortgage. That's the only thing, I
Yeah.
got fresh groceries in the fridge. You know what I'm saying? I'm out on my porch every day at 5:30 p.m. having a Cosmo and smoking cigarettes. Like, what's not to like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, it sounds like that wasn't enough for you. You saw that there was room for more,
Yeah.
whether it was being able to chase personal passions, have more time with family, just more
Mhm.
freedom.
Yeah.
But what did other people think? I mean, did you have friends or family members that were kind of like naysaying, like, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah, I had a little bit of both. So, of course, my like online family was like super supportive of it, right? Like,
Sure.
these people are like, "That's awesome," because it's inspiring. Because
Yeah, they're like, me too.
a lot of these people are living that same thing.
Yeah.
However, the big push is because I've surrounded myself with people who are doing this. It's possible, right? I'm starting to see possibility. I'm starting to
Yeah.
believe that this is a real thing. Just because I didn't grow up this way, and my parents will work till the day they die type situation.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, there's got to be more. I want more because I'm like, I don't see my kid enough. I'm like, I don't even have a life. I don't even date.
Yeah.
And like that's not good. Like I'll go on like a date here, but I haven't been like in a relationship because I don't have time to give to them.
Yeah.
I'm like, here's my schedule. 7 p.m. to 9. Are you available? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of things that have gone into this decision. I'm
But
not
you be
just
having priorities too. You're like, listen, I am going to the gym every single day.
Oh yeah. Oh no, 100%.
Yeah.
I'll choose the gym over. I chose the gym over like a dating life during that period.
Yo, listen, if somebody asks me, they're like, hey, do you want to go do something this Tuesday? I'm like, in the middle of the week? I'm like,
How dare you?
dude, I'm at the gym from 5 to 7:30. You better
It's
get out of my. And then
sacred.
I gotta go home and I gotta eat this meal. I gotta eat this rice and these green beans.
I
Like
can
I
eat
don't.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like-
listen, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, so what? How did you handle these naysayers, like the people that? Because I know in some
Some is
cases,
family, too.
Yeah, it's like friends, it's family, like people that you like love and trust. And man, it can hurt when people are like, "Yo, listen, I hope you know what you're doing." Like
Yeah.
when somebody talks that kind of shit, hey, I hope you know what you're doing. That's
Yep.
like, man, it hurts. So you're like,
Like to
damn,
think
dude, like maybe I don't, brother,
brand
but
new.
yeah,
Yeah.
does anybody? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
One of them was he had said, and he's kind of like a family friend, but he was like, I really hope that you got something else? Or, oh, is it more income? I get to ask that one. Is it more income than you're making now? The answer is, I don't ever answer it because
Yeah.
I'm just like, what does that have to matter? But the answer is no. I was making a ton in corporate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, you don't understand that I finally put quality of life and a relationship with my son over a dollar amount.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I need to be able to not live in a box, but I've already asked my son, if we lived in a box on the side of the street, would you live with me? And he said, hell yes. He didn't say hell, he said yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's all I needed to hear. That's my ride or die.
You're like, my son is not
It won't
cussing
get
at
to
me.
that point.
Yeah.
It won't get to that point, but I'm like, I do everything for him, everything I'm doing. I saved, like, yes. But the naysayers are it's always money. Is it more? I'm like, jumping jobs just for increase in pay and not liking it is not exactly the move for me at this point in my life.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy my life. I want to be happy. I think chasing happiness and getting paid along the way would be great. I think that's more, making income and doing what you love coming together. That's the
Yeah.
that's the goal.
I think if you chase passion and education, generally speaking, money tends to follow, right?
Yeah.
And I found that if you chase money, you can get it. You can for sure,
Yeah.
like you can go get the bag. If you really are just like, you know what, I'm interested in just chasing money. I think a lot of times, sometimes you'll miss those things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll miss additional education, learning about things, this great big wide world that's out there. Well, like, congrats to you for being brave and not listening to the naysayers. As some people call them, as TikTok kids call them, the haters.
The haters.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with these haters.
Yeah.
But they out there, and sometimes it be your own homies. But so now you've gotten this great job, this position with Warrior Rising. So you're leveraging the skills that you've developed and continuing to grow your personal brand. I know we talked about this earlier, kind of offline when we were discussing what we were going to cover on the podcast today, but tell me, like, what's Alyssa going to do when she grows up? You're growing this brand, you're focused on health and wellness. It sounds like instead of being in front of the camera, you're standing behind it now. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 4 years? How are you wanting to develop the next great entrepreneurial pursuit for you? It sounds like you've already leveraged a great deal of what you've learned. You're monetizing it. You're well on your way, but I'd love to hear about what you have in mind for the next few years. Where are you going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still trying to figure out. But I
same.
think there's always going to be a fitness element. So I think this
Great.
one-on-one coaching, whether it goes into, I'll probably start running some class at my gym just for fun to see how it is.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be some element. Hopefully it gets more niche or I figure something else, but fitness is always going to be a piece of it. There's people who always reach out for some help in that aspect. So I'm like, that's always going to be a piece of it. As far as like the media, I really like this side. That's why this job or this position really intrigues me.
Yeah.
Is because it's something that I like doing and learning about. Like I'll be watching, a study or what is it? My academia is a YouTube Academy lately for just, like it's a joke, but it's like marketing.
No, but they're good though, man.
Yeah, there's tons of things just to learn about anything. I could be like, okay, this camera, I can't figure this out. Or just marketing from, 2004 versus 2024, massive difference in marketing.
Listen, I'll tell you right now, if my kid started choking on something, the first thing I would do is YouTube how to fix it and hope like hell that I could skip the ad after 6 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a real resource. And like, I'm fundraising for one of the brands that I'm working with right now. And I must have watched about 6 hours of YouTube footage from Y Combinator about what fundraising and different types of safe securities and, debt versus equity-based lending and all kinds of stuff. So, continued education is a big deal. So it sounds like you're continuing to try and learn and grow, and that's fantastic. Yep. I got a question for you. If you were, and this is kind of something I plan on asking all our guests, what's a piece of an educational resource, a place you've gone for knowledge, whether it's a podcast, book, YouTube channel, where have you been able to like learn a ton about both being an entrepreneur, health, wellness, kind of some of the stuff that you're drilling? Any kind of resource that you would recommend to some of the folks out there that are listening and are in a similar industry or space as you?
So my 2 favorites, Diary of a CEO is one. Awesome. A lot of fitness stuff, a lot of health, like professionals on there. Really great channel. I recommend it. And Dan Coe. So Dan Coe is another one I love listening to or watching on YouTube, but he has a lot of readings. He's a writer, and he talks about the writing, but he also talks about the creator economy. talks about, leaving his job or, just being this serial entrepreneur and building all these different things. And he talks about just how the mind works. He calls it mental bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Just listen to it for yourself. But he just talks about life as it is. Like some people are just going to get stuck in this vortex of 9 to 5s. And like, this is what we've always done because everything else is uncomfortable, right? That's just what we've known. And not everybody.
Yeah.
I would like to say like the Gary V's of the world are very fortunate for the family they grew up in or, because the mindset was there, that empathy was there as he talks about his parents were very empathetic. Some of us didn't have families like that pushed us to be greater or say like, I'm proud of you. Like that's something that I don't hear. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's certain things how you grow up. So those are two I really like. So Dan Coe, Diary of a CEO. I do read a lot as well. What else? I was going to say something about the creative space. Oh yeah. I already forgot. Okay.
That's okay.
I was going to say something. I really had something on the tip of my tongue.
No. And then, if you could give somebody who's operating in the same space as you, or maybe somebody that's in a similar position, maybe if you could just go back in time, talk to, baby Alyssa Michelle back in the day, what's a piece of advice that you would give a person operating in the same space, getting ready to take the same leap as you, or something you would have liked to have known 5 years ago?
5 years ago. Wow. It's going to sound really obvious, I guess, but I don't know. Anything is literally possible if you just work. If you're the hardest worker in the room, or if you're working as hard as you can, that the
Yeah.
possibilities are endless. That if you know deep inside of you that you are capable of more, and you're not doing anything about it, that's a disservice to yourself, and possibly a disservice to your family or your community. Because if you have more to give and you're capable of more, your potential is so high, and you know it,
Yeah.
and you choose to do nothing about it, disservice.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting concept to know that if you're capable of more to a degree, you might actually be doing not only a disservice to you and your family, but like, dude, your community, right?
Potentially.
You just have all this fantastic potential. Well, for the people that are tuning in, listening, and watching, how can they learn more about you? How can they reach out to you? How can they see what you're doing? What's a good way to keep the finger on the pulse of Alyssa Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. So through Warrior Rising, would be email at alyssa@warriorrising.org. That's a great way to connect with me for anything Warrior Rising content-wise, media. Personal brand is Little Fit Patriot. That's my handle on literally everything.
Hell yeah.
So that is the best way to find me, is follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm literally everywhere. So
All right, sick.
yeah.
Love to hear that. We really appreciate having you on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing your story of transition and a lot of stuff about vulnerability. It's exciting that you've kind of taken the leap and that you've been able to kind of develop a professional acumen that's given you an opportunity to like do so much cool stuff that you're really passionate about. I know personally, I'm excited, one, to work with you at Warrior Rising. You've been a tremendous asset to the team. And you've only been here for like 30 days, not even really. But also really excited to see what you're going to do with your personal brand and all the great stuff that you're going to accomplish. Don't forget to follow us at Warrior Rising. Or what is our Instagram?
We are Warrior Rising.
God, I don't even know our own Instagram handle. What is the matter with me? But it's
Warrior Rising.
Yeah, it's you can find us on Instagram at We Are Warrior Rising. That's a great way not only to find yourself to our podcast, but also keep track of all the great content that we have. Of course, if you're interested in Warrior Rising programs, you can head over to warriorrising.org. Sign up for our programs. Our coaching and mentorship calls happen on a weekly basis. We'd love to have you. Love to share some of our education, coaching, and mentorship with you. And of course, if you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, don't hesitate to give me an email at ben@warriorrising.org. And you can also hit me up if you just have general questions about Warrior Rising or just want to talk shop. Alyssa Michelle, hey, I appreciate you being on the podcast again, and I can't wait to hear the finished product.
Appreciate it, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.